Okay, spatial joins. Right click on UNE parcels, and we're going to do joins and relates, and then we're going to do join the exact same way you would do a normal join. Except once you're here, you have this option to either do by table, which is the one we did last semester, or by spatial location. And this is what I was saying. This is where everything for spatial joins is going to happen. So if it's not in this menu, right, it's a simple menu. For this layer, I can only do a few things. I think so. For any other thing I want to join to it, it's only going to be either I can get, for option 1, a summary of the numeric attributes of the thing I'm going to join to, which means, like, let's say the buildings had how many people were in them, and I wanted to know how many people were near a point of interest. I could summarize and get the total number of people that are near that point of interest just from the buildings. Yes, exactly. And then this other one, again, it would be, it's just going to report to you everything about the closest one. And then it's going to tell you how far away that thing is. So let's try these and see if we can get some results. So let's do the forest over here, and we're gonna okay, I have an idea. Let's go into the wetlands and calculate an area of wetlands, and then join that to the forest and summarize it. And we can get a total area of the different types of wetlands.
Wouldn't it be easier just to do a query? Is how it's done.
Right, so a query, you could do it that way, I guess, but you wouldn't have, yeah, for that specific problem, it's not a great example. Because what for a spatial join, I guess you really want to do it on a data set that's got multiple polygons, and you want multiple results instead of just a query where you do the distance or the summary of the total area. So let's do one. Let's get the number of buildings within each parcel. So we'll use the UNE parcels. And we'll do a join, and we'll do a spatial join. And we'll say UNE buildings with names, and let's do so each point will be given the summary of the numeric attributes. Oh, great, and a count field of how many polygons intersected. So I'm actually not going to do any summaries. I'm just going to do it for the count. So if you just select this up here and you run it, it'll return for each parcel. One of the fields will just be count of things that are in that parcel. Again, why you have to read that. Like every time I go back, I got to read that paragraph again and convince myself what's going to happen. So if the buildings had a numeric attribute like number of people in that building, then you could summarize that as well. But checking this radio button and not checking any of these boxes is also like a helpful thing to do. So the other thing about spatial joins is that they're always going to create a new file. So instead of kind of working in ArcMap and it joins data and then you have this temporary join in there, you're going to have to define where you want to put this data every time you do this. So in the exercise, it tells you you probably want to create like an exercise 9, I think, like scratch data folder, which just means like throwaway data. The other thing about spatial joins is always helpful. Never export anything that's called join output, because you'll never remember what that was. So the best way to name stuff that you get from joins is you think about what you want to do first, right? In this case, we're doing UNE parcels to UNE buildings with names. So I'll do, I do the thing that's getting joined to first. So parcels to buildings. And then a lot of times I'll even put why I'm doing it. So count, or even for count. So then I know what's involved and why I did it. And then even when I'm evaluating it afterwards, I can kind of tell what I meant to do. So I'm just going to make a new geodatabase to put my results in. All right, so it made a new file, right? It's just this blue polygon. And then, but it's funny, so it does that and it doesn't really tell you what it did. You have to look in the attribute table. And so if I go to the far right side, you can see it's got a lot of data because it was originally the parcels had a ton of data. But then here at the end, it's got, yeah, I think this is the only field that came from the buildings, so the buildings didn't have any other attributes, but it had a count of number of buildings. So let's see if it lines up with reality. We can do color it by count. And that makes a lot of sense. So we can see that there are a lot of buildings up here. Yeah, let's color that differently. Right, so all those buildings up there were counted within those parcels. So that's the option from a polygon to a point. So then there's an option, let's say for all the blue lights, we wanted to know what building was closest to the blue lights. So like we want to assign a building to them. And then we wanted to know how close it was to the nearest building. So the way we do that, that would be a point-to-point spatial join, which is why, it'd be a point-to-polygon, but I think it would have the same menu. Let's see. So you start with the thing you want to know something about, which would be blue lights, and what the closest thing is to that. Join. It's already on the spatial location. And you can do buildings. Okay, so this one is interesting, right? So you're going point to polygon, and your two choices are, do you want to know which polygon it falls inside, or do you want to know which polygon is closest to it? And we want to know which one is closest to it, because some of the, like we saw, one of the blue lights is on a building, but most of them aren't. So you want to know what the distance is. So we're just going to check that one. So again, we do blue lights to buildings for closest. Okay, so now you can see it made another little point layer on top of the blue lights. And we got to go in and look at it again. If you go to the right side, it just appends the closest building's data, so building name, onto each blue light. So it'd be interesting. We can symbolize it based on the building name. And some of them, like down here, have multiple blue lights associated with them. So this green, Morgan Hall, these are all the lights that are closest to that one.
Also, I forgot to mention the buildings. That square, that rectangular one, that's a parking lot.
Oh.
And that other one is not.
All right. No, remind me. It's actually one of the, well, I'll tell you in a minute. So the other thing I was going to look at was the distance. So a lot of times when you get this distance, it's hard to know what units it's in, right? Because it doesn't tell you. So what I usually do is I would go to one, zoom to it. I just double clicked on the little nub here. You can also right click and say zoom or pan to. And you want to take note of what the distance says, so 22 somethings. And then look at the map. I'm going to guess that's feet. It might be meters, probably feet. But I will always do this because it doesn't report the units, so I'll just measure it with the measuring tool. And I'll say distance, we're going to guess feet. Yeah, 22 feet. So it's in feet. So we know that now. And if you wanted to also symbolize these by distance to the closest building, oh yeah, we could do proportional symbols, distance, and then you see when you zoom out, the ones that are farther away from buildings have a higher distance value.